Hello and welcome to this episode of Essex by the Sea. I'm Owen Ward and I'm exploring the coast of Essex on this podcast. For this episode, I'm joined by an actor who's appeared in Dad's Army, Are You Being Served?, It Ain't Half Hot Mum, Oh Dr. Beach in Coronation Street and Hi-de-Hi. And it's Hi-de-Hi we'll be focusing this episode on, as the 80s sitcom was filmed in a holiday camp on the Essex coast. Pleased to say Jeffrey Holland, who played the character Spike Dixon in Hi-de-Hi, joins me now. Jeffrey, thank you for joining us on Essex by the Sea.
Pleasure, Owen. Nice to be talking to you.
Now, Hi-de-Hi burst onto our TV screens on New Year's Day, 1980, and perhaps for those who are not too familiar with the show, can you tell me what it was all about?
Well, it was set in 1959, and post-war holidays were still being very, very much regimented as they had been. You know, people were used to queuing up for everything, queuing up for a second sitting of dinner and lunch and all the rest of it, and everything was very regimented, and people seemed to like it that way at the time. And that's what Hi-de-Hi was based on, those years at that time in the late 50s.
And the show is famous for its Hi-de-Hi campers catchphrase. You're probably sick and tired of people coming up and saying that, aren't you?
I'm not sick of it. No, I love it. You know, I'm very proud to have been a part of such a huge success. And people only say it because they remember it with such affection. And I was in Sainsbury's, I was Tesco's or one of those other supermarkets the other day with my white hair now and my mask on. And this girl stopped dead in her tracks and she said, "Oh, I bet you get sick of people saying hi-de-hi to you." And I said, "I'm surprised you recognise me with all this on." She said, "You haven't changed. You don't look any different." I said, "Well, for goodness sake." You know, so I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm very proud of it. Very proud to have been part of it.
And it was filmed at a holiday camp just up the road from Clacton in Dovercourt.
Right.
And, I mean, was it like a holiday when you were going to do the filming?
Well, it wasn't, if you know what I mean. And we were at the Dovercourt camp. It was owned by Warner's at the time, and it was pretty grim, I must be honest. We went in at the end of their summer season, at the end of September, and BBC props men put all the coloured bunting up and all the coloured toys and things around to brighten it all up. It looked a bit like an open prison. You know, but the funny thing about it was that it actually had been an Italian prisoner of war internment camp, you know, during that awful conflict. But then they put a few more chalets in, a few more wooden huts, and turned it into a holiday camp. So I think nothing much changed, I don't think, in 50 years.
And did filming on location in a real life holiday camp sort of bring an extra dimension to you as a performer? Yeah, did it help you get into that sort of character?
It did. It was fun. I mean, when we actually did stuff around the pool, you know, and I was dressed up as an idiot most of the time, and then people just chuck me in the water, and you know, it was very much a holiday atmosphere, you know. But of course, within the discipline of David Croft, who you never crossed. You know, David was a great man, a fun man, and but he was also an extremely disciplined film and television producer and director. So you didn't mess about with David, and you certainly didn't muck about with the scripts. But yeah, it was good fun. Having said that, it was good fun. We all loved each other very much, and we all got on with this enormously well.
And I'm guessing filming sort of obviously not in the peak of the season, as you say, sort of at the end of September, going into autumn time. Then that water in the pool must have been quite cold.
It was very cold, in fact, because I used to have to wear a wetsuit under my costume, whatever it was that they were dressing me up in to throw me in the water. But there was one occasion when I couldn't do that because I was dressed up as Miss Maplin. You know, I was in fishnet tights, high heel shoes, you know, a long blonde wig and all the rest of it put together. And I had to slip and fall in the water in this particular sequence. And they'd had to delay the shooting of that sequence for 2 weeks for technical reasons. And we were now in the middle of October, and that water was freezing. It was Arctic. And the two poor girls, the Yellowcoat girls, they had to go in bikinis as well. So there was me, slipped on a banana skin, supposedly, and fell into the water. And we were shooting the sequence around the pool from various different angles. And I suddenly felt my legs going numb. You know, hypothermia was setting in, literally. And I shouted to David, "I'm sorry, David, I'll have to get out," because I knew if I didn't get out, then they'd have to pull me out, you know.
Yeah.
It was a bit all right a bit later on, but I put me in a hot bath after lunch and everything was fine. But it was a bit dodgy because I'm, not the strongest of swimmers. And I was treading water in 9 feet of water, and it wasn't a good idea for me at that time. But when you see the finished result, and it's the one where Peggy has to be in the rubber shark, when you see the end result, that sequence, you never know there was a mistake or anything going on. But that water was Arctic. One of the tabloids, I think it was the Sunday People or something, caught a hold of the story. And the double-page spread on the following Sunday's paper said the headline was "The Day I Nearly Heidi Died." So there, God bless the tabloid press.
You mentioned some of the names there of other people that you sort of played alongside, and there were some big names in Heidi High alongside yourself.
Well, it were indeed. It put us all on the map, in the first place. And Sue's part in the pilot episode, the first one, as Peggy the Shelley maid, was only a very tiny little cameo role for her. But when David Croft realised how popular and how funny she was, and how popular she turned out to be with the punters, he wrote the part up for her, and it turned her into a big star, to a great singer. She'd done a lot of musical work. Before all that, and Ruth Maddock too had been on the stage and done a lot of musical stuff. She'd been in the black and white minstrels and done all kinds of other things. Again, a good singer. Paul Shane, a great singer. So when we came eventually in the middle '80s to do the stage show, the summer season and Victoria Palace Christmas season, we were all experienced enough to carry it off as theatre performers. I'd been an actor on the stage for most of my early career before that. And it paid off at the end. It paid off. Yeah.
What is it that you think's given its longevity? Because as you mentioned it, there are still the stage version of it being performed right up to now.
Right now, anywhere we speak, I get emails. Would I please wish the cast, a happy first night and a good run? And I do that with the greatest of pleasure all the time. And it's a great tribute to us, to a very popular and show. A much-loved show, it's still there because it's funny. That's what it is. It is pure family fun. Things changed, and when we left that behind and we did You Ran Me Lord, it was 3 years, and then Dr. Beeching came along and we did that. Then things changed in the 90s, but different sorts of styles of comedy emerging. But it's a testament to the talent of everyone involved in the show, including Jimmy and David, who created it and wrote it in the first place, that it's still good, clean fun, and people still love to watch it. It's on the Gold Channel now as we speak, and the DVDs are selling well, and people still talk about it. 40 years ago it was, when that first episode was aired, 40 years ago. And I sometimes feel it in my joints, but other than that, no, I think it's fine.
On screen, it looked like a lot of fun. Was it as fun off screen as well, or was it hard work?
It was. We spent 3 weeks at Dovercourt during all the exteriors for the series on film, and we stayed at the Cliff Hotel, which sadly has now been pulled down as well. But we had a lot of fun socially. We were fed and watered on the camp, and then in the evening we went back to the hotel, a couple of drinks, and we probably all went out for dinner as well after that. It was a great sort of few weeks of the year, and then back to London to do an episode a week in the studio and play in the film that we got for the particular episode. So it was lovely.
How real do you think Heidi High was to holiday camps at the time and at the height of their popularity?
That's the thing, you see. It was very different to how they were at the time. In the 80s, when David was first setting up the filming of the pilot episode in 79, he approached Robert Butlin, who was then running the company of Butlins, and asked if we could film exteriors either Clacton or Filey. And he was absolutely adamant that we was having nothing to do with it whatsoever. He said we'd spent millions and millions of pounds over 20 odd years later on, improving our image and, rounding off the corners and turning them into holiday centres. The word camp was being left behind. Self-catering was coming in and all that. But he missed the point entirely, because we were setting this in 1959. long before all that. And it was such a shame because, Heidi High and Butlins, the BBC, could have been best of friends and cooperated on that, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen. So he went to Warner's instead. In fact, I went to Clacton with my mum and dad when I was about 4 years old, I think. We spent a fortnight there. And I was the kind of little boy that wouldn't go off and play with all the other kids and the children's entertainers that were there. And I stayed with my mum, cutting my mum's apron strings all the way through the holiday and watching everybody else run off. It just didn't appeal to me at all. But it was based, again, the characters in Heidi High were based on real people that Jimmy and David had actually worked with. Because Jimmy was, in fact, my part, really. He was the young comic. When he was at RADA training to be an actor back in the 50s, he spent his summer holidays in a red coat for Butlins.
Right, yeah.
He was a young comic. His bill matter, I think, at the time, it was Laugh and Be Merry with Jolly Jim Perry. That was what he put on his bill matter. David Croft, of course, worked in the holiday camps too, when they used to produce plays. They used to put a potted version of a play on in their theatre, every week, and this would just run about an hour. And David used to produce all these. So they knew all these people. They'd been there and worked with them all. There was the children's entertainer, the little Punch and Judy man who couldn't stand children. He hated them. And there was the poor, ballroom dancing couple who hadn't won a cup since 1943, and the bent jockey who was looking after the horses because he'd lost his license from pulling a race, and they based all these characters on the real people that they knew. So that was what was authentic about it.
And given that authenticity, I suppose it allows the audience then to build that connection up because, they're based on real life people, and the audience can then, in their own mind, go, oh yeah, I know someone who's a little bit like that. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Well, because they were real, genuinely based on authentic people. That still probably around there today, in different ways, obviously a different level now. It's a different world.
Heidi High ran for 8 years, 55 episodes, ended in 1988. But a small number of the cast, including yourself from Heidi High, went on to do other things afterwards, didn't you? I mean, how did that sort of nucleus of actors and actresses come about?
I think it was just David and Jimmy's choice, really. They wanted to keep Sue and Paul and myself together because we were such good friends anyway. And we became really good friends. And we worked so well together. We bounced off each other beautifully. And we were in the opposite end of the spectrum. We were totally different people as human beings, to look at. You couldn't have had three more different people to look at than the three of us. Which I suppose is another reason why they wanted to have us together. And it was a joy to go on to do Your Lord for them as well. It was a wonderful piece, really was.
And a few years ago, yourself and Sue Pollard reached the final of Celebrity Pointless, and I saw a little clip of that. You're actually dressed as a dame in that particular episode.
Pantomime one. We actually got it was a pantomime special that was a few years ago, and we won the coveted Pointless trophy.
Hey,
it's proudly on my mantelpiece as we speak.
Brilliant.
But we didn't win the money. Sadly, we didn't win the money for the charities, but we did get a couple of £100 for our charities, but not the big jackpot prize. It was a shame, but I've just done another one with Perry Benson actually, which went out a few weeks ago. So yes, I've done 3 Pointlesses now. Sue and I, before we did the pantomime one, a couple of years before that, we did another one, which is as ourselves. We were knocked out in the first round when we joined the 200 Club because we both got a wrong answer and went straight out.
Oh no!
No, it couldn't be helped.
And also, I mean, it's good to see that you are sort of still, good friends with the other cast members from Heidi High.
Absolutely. Those of us that still survive, that is, yes. Sue and I just did pantomime together last Christmas at Wolverhampton. So that was fun to do. We enjoyed that very much. And we got to put our Heidi High costumes on at the end of it as well, just for a bit of a laugh. She put the Peggy costume on and I put the Spike yellow jacket on. And it was good fun, really good fun.
What's the one memory from your time filming Heidi High in Essex? Is there one particular memory that jumps out for you, other than, of course, freezing cold in the swimming pool?
Well, it was all such good fun. We just had, it was a real wonderful. I remember one morning though, I had my I was pretty hoarse and my voice wouldn't work for some reason. I walked all the way along the front from the hotel to the holiday camp, which was about half a mile up the coast, trying to sing and trying to loosen my voice, because I had to sing a song in the first scene that was being shot that morning, and this was like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I was trying to sing I've Got No Strings to Hold Me Down, because I was dressed as Pinocchio in that particular episode. And my voice wouldn't work that morning at all. I got up feeling absolutely hoarse. So that's one of a moment of panic, I think. So will I be able to make a sound when I get there? As it happens, it doesn't look like I've got a problem when you see the piece of film. So it all worked out. Things like that you remember. The overall blanket of the feeling of the thing was it was such fun. We had such fun doing it. Shame to take the money, really, but we did. It was lovely. It was great memories.
Well, Jeffrey, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you today on this episode of Essex by the Sea. Thank you very much for joining me.
Can I send a message to my friends in Southend, please?
Of course.
I belong to the Owen Hardy Appreciation Society, and their branch of the club is called the Saps at Sea, because that's based on the title of one of Owen Hardy's films. So I'd like to say if any of the Saps are listening, I send my love. Thank you, Owen.
Make sure you've subscribed to Essex by the Sea on your favourite podcast app, and please do tell your friends about it and encourage them to take a listen as well. An episode lands on the 1st and 15th of each month. So until next time, thanks for listening.